You know, when you see a picture of Earth from space, it's this beautiful swirl of blue and green. But what are those huge patches of water and land? Well, that's what we're diving into today, the absolute basics of our world. It's oceans and continents. All right, to really get a handle on this, let's kind of zoom out, way out. We're going to start our journey by seeing our home planet the way the very first astronauts did, looking back from the quiet of space.
And this is it. This is that incredible view. Can you imagine seeing that for the first time? That amazing, brilliant blue was just everywhere. It's no wonder they almost instantly gave our home a nickname that stuck, the Blue Planet.
So, why that name? Well, it all comes down to some pretty simple numbers. A whopping 71%, that's almost 3/4 of our entire planet's surface, is covered in water. That bright blue glow, that's our oceans. Only the other 29% is the land that we all live on. Okay, so when you break it down, our planet's surface really has two main parts, right? You've got these huge bodies of water, which we call oceans, and then you have the massive chunks of land, which we call continents. Simple enough. So let's dive into the water first, shall we?
All right, let's get into this incredible world of water. And you're about to see something really cool. It's all way more connected than the maps we look at make it seem.
So what exactly is an ocean? I mean, at its simplest, it's just one of those giant saltwater bodies you see on a globe. But get this, together they hold something like 97% of all the water on our planet. Think about that for a second. Pretty much every drop is in the oceans. And this right here, this is a super important idea to get. There aren't any actual walls between the Pacific and the Atlantic or any of the others. We give them different names on our maps, sure, but in reality, it's all just one gigantic connected body of water. The currents are just flowing from one ocean to the next, all the time. So, to make things a little easier to talk about, we humans have divided this one huge world ocean into 5 major areas. You've probably heard of them. We've got the Pacific, that's the biggest one, then the Atlantic, the Indian, the Southern Ocean, and finally, the smallest one up top, the chilly Arctic Ocean.
Okay, so we've got a handle on the oceans. But what about all that land they surround? Now here's a fun question. How many continents are there? The answer, well, it's actually a little trickier than you might think. It kind of depends on who you ask.
First things first, what even is a continent? Let's get the definition straight. It's basically just a really big, continuous piece of land. You can almost think of it like an island that's so huge it gets its own special category. It feels like this should have one simple answer, doesn't it? But believe it or not, depending on where you grew up or what school of thought you follow, the number you learn can actually be different. And this table breaks it down perfectly. It's really a debate between geology and culture. See, from a purely geological standpoint, Europe and Asia are connected. They're one giant landmass called Eurasia. Same goes for the Americas, which can be seen as one. But the 7-continent model, the one many of us learned, also looks at culture and history. And that's why it's so common, especially in places like the US and Western Europe. All right, let's head back to the water. We're going to take a trip beneath the waves and check out the unbelievable variety of life that's hiding down there. You know, the ocean is just packed with life. I mean, absolutely teeming with it. And we can basically split it into 2 big groups. You have the flora, which is all the plant life. Everything from teeny tiny algae to these massive underwater kelp forests. And then you have the fauna. That's all the animals, from microscopic plankton all the way up to giant whales. And some of the most colorful, lively ecosystems on the entire planet are underwater. Take coral reefs. They're basically like busy underwater cities, right? These amazing structures are actually built by tiny little animals, and they become home and a source of food for thousands and thousands of different species. And the scale of life in the ocean is just mind-blowing. We're talking about the home of the largest animal that has ever existed on Earth, the blue whale. And at the same time, you've got these ancient predators like sharks that have been cruising through these waters for hundreds of millions of years. It's just incredible. Okay, so we have this huge system of oceans and land. But why should we care? What does it all mean for us, living our lives up here on the continents? Well, that's what we're looking at next, the super important connection between all of it and us. Well, for a start, how about the very air we breathe? The oceans are critical for that. Remember all that plant life we just talked about, the algae and plankton? Well, that stuff produces more than half of the oxygen in the world. So yeah, the oceans are literally the lungs of our planet. Not only that, but they also control our climate, soaking up heat and driving weather all over the globe. But here's the thing, the same ocean system that gives us life and keeps our climate in check, well, it also has this immense and sometimes terrifying power. It's something we absolutely have to respect.
And one of the scariest examples of that power is a tsunami. What is that exactly? It's a series of gigantic waves, usually set off by a powerful earthquake or a volcano erupting on the ocean floor. And these waves can travel across entire oceans, moving as fast as a jet plane.
A really tragic and powerful reminder of this was the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. It started with a huge earthquake off the coast of Indonesia, and the waves it created spread out across the entire ocean. They ended up hitting 14 different countries, and tragically more than 200,000 people lost their lives. It was just devastating.
What events like that really show us is that this whole system, the oceans, the land, it's all connected in a very delicate balance. The health of the oceans is directly tied to our own health, and that means it's up to all of us. It's our shared responsibility to protect them from things like pollution and overfishing.
So, to wrap things up, I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from the author Jules Verne. He wrote way back in 1870 that the globe began with the ocean. He saw it as the source of everything. And as we think about the future, the question he kind of leaves us with is more important than ever. If our world started with the ocean, what role is it going to play in our future or even our end?